Suppose an angel crossed the south coast somewhere about Folkestone. I'm sure angels often do, on their way to Canterbury, or Westminster perhaps. Instantly he would find himself above the rich flat lands of Kent. And sweeping across this ancient landscape, he would see below him a small and not really very remarkable village called Ickham. This is a film out of a Kentish summer all about the place. We've called it Reflections, partly because it's meant to be a reflective kind of film, conceived in pleasure and in sunshine, and partly because the rather hazy point of it is to consider an English village as a mirror of change, and to see how all our shifting fortunes are reflected there.
Why Ickham? Well, why not? It's a good place. We dedicate this little film, with affection, but not, I hope, with slush, to all the inhabitants of the village, young and old, nice and nasty.
400 people live in Ickham. We invited them into Mrs. Baines's field behind the church and put our cameras on a tower, and from there we discovered how insular a people this remains. Half our Ickham citizens have never been out of England, and at least one, like Mrs. Holliday, has never been to London.
I've never been to London, and I don't want to, and I don't like Ickham either.
In the village shop, the assistants wear white coats, partly for hygiene, partly for effect. There's a little alcove there that becomes, on demand, the post office, and is a regular cornucopia of social benefits. Half the village lives in antique cottages, but the other half has moved into a council house.
Double tap again then, Jim.
Today it's a farmer's village. If you want to set eyes on an Englishman, drop in on Ickham like the angel. These are real English faces, canny, rooted, strong, sometimes cunning, often enigmatical, moulded to their setting as snugly as a conker in a chestnut shell. Ickham, like England, remains nobly of character. Stanley White here specializes in collating car numbers with hymn numbers, ancient and modern, of course.
285. Fierce raged the tempest o'er the deep. 853. That's not in our books. But backwards, 358 is from Greenland's icy mountains.
Aeroplanes with boot-polished tins for wheels. Why tins, Mr. Luff?
Well, I used to make the airplanes with wooden wheels. Well, then I had an idea that if I made them with the tin wheels, they'd make more noise when they was going up. See? Well, of course, the big ones would make more noise, wouldn't they?
We found from our tower that Ickham, like England, has its links with the far corners of the earth. Half Ickham has relatives who have emigrated abroad, leaving a still noticeable gap in the middle of the community. Mrs. Belcher used to live in India. Now, in her own half-timbered cantonment, can she maintain her privacy?
Yes, oh yes, quite well. Sad you don't want to. I mean, all the village people and everybody around are so nice, and all your friends, they're all your friends, and you love them to come in and see you and to go and see them.
Do you find them nicer in general now than they
Oh,
were
much
40 years
nicer,
ago?
much. Everybody's nicer.
Why?
People weren't a bit friendly. Oh, the wars brought us all together. We did everything together, and everybody got friendly, and we were all frightened together, and it was wonderful, much
You
better.
don't think there are any great sort of class gulfs between different kinds of people?
Oh, well, there always will be, I think, don't you, in a village?
Less
We
so than
try.
there were?
Yes, well, we try to get over it.
Hmm.
There'll always be somebody who won't get over it.
Mrs. Harmsworth has a son at Harrow and a fine gambler's twinkle in her eye. Does such a person like her Ickham neighbours?
Some of them, yes.
Some of them not.
Some of them definitely not.
Why not? Are they catty?
They are inclined to be catty and they gossip a lot. But they can be very kind to you as well. But they will fabricate any kind of story, exaggerate it beyond all measure.
Do you do it yourself at all?
Yes, I do. If it's a good story.
You don't find it cramping living in such a little place as this?
Yes, very cramping. I think it's a very narrow kind of life. And I think if one didn't get away from it sometimes, one would get extremely narrow oneself. Perhaps I am.
Relationships between people are always difficult and touchy in a little place like this. Class differences are the kind of thing you can really only tell by instinct, but there are still undeniable social gulfs between the various classes of the community, between what used to be called the gentry and the farmers and the employees. And though nobody quite likes to admit it, these things do affect the behavior of people towards one another. Do you remember the days when the squire was important?
I have faint recollection of that.
What was it like?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was much short of slavery.
How do you mean?
Well, put it this way. My father worked for the squire. My mother had 2 sons, my brother and I. Right, if the squire wanted us to work for him, we had to work for him. We couldn't go elsewhere.
Didn't he do any good in the way of looking after people and that kind of thing?
No, I think he dominated. I would say he dominated more than anything.
The energies of Ickham, though, are scarcely revolutionary. Coffin production is uninterrupted by strikes in a place that stands on the edge of stagnancy. Even the children play down among the dead men. The school is dead, too. Ickham doesn't need one anymore, it being an elderly kind of village, so they're pulling it down. And for older people, too, life can be drab enough as the long bucolic day drags by. The kitchens may look trim, but often the lav is out among the cabbages.